Welcome to Detox to Rehab live stream reflections. Today joining me are Connor, Bianca, and Corey. I'm sorry, I accidentally called you Connor. Corey, Connor, and Bianca.
It happens.
Got that. Look. Well, anyway, each week we read from two segments of reflections for both Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous from the text from Just for Today and Daily Reflections. So our first excerpt comes from Just for Today, taking from basic text page 50, saying that when we were using, our lives became an exercise in survival. Now we're doing much more living than surviving. I'd be better off dead is a familiar refrain to a practicing addict, and with good reason. All we had to look forward to was more of the same miserable existence. Our hold on life was weak at best. Our emotional decay, our spiritual demise, and the crushing awareness that nothing would ever change were constants. We had little hope and no concept of the life we were missing out on. The resurrection of our emotions, our spirits, and our physical health takes time. The more experience we gain in living, rather than merely existing, the more we understand how precious and delightful life can be. Traveling, playing with a small child, expanding our intellectual horizons, and forming relationships are among the endless activities that say, I'm alive. We discover so much to cherish and feel grateful to have a second chance. If we had died in active addiction, we would have been bitterly deprived of so many of life's joys. Each day, we thank a power greater than ourselves for another day clean and another day of life. So just for today, I'm grateful to be alive. I will do something today to celebrate.
Awesome. I know for me, I don't know about you guys, but I would always say, like, I'd be better off dead. Even to my family, they would call me and be like, you know, you're worth this, you can do better, and I would just look at them and be like, no, like, I have nothing for you guys, I have nothing for this life, like, I'm destined to die a junkie. And that's the way I thought. Because all I had, it says in here, like all I had to look forward to was more of the same existence, and that was getting loaded, getting sick, getting loaded, getting sick, trying to find food, trying to find a place to sleep, trying to get safe, just so many things. And because of my recovery, it is the little things that they mentioned here that are so amazing, and it just proves that we do have a second chance at living. And for me, I enjoy traveling. Like, I've been on a few vacations since I've been clean and sober, and I've done things. I've babysat kids when it says playing with a small child, and I've just expanded so much of my intellectual horizons. Like, I didn't know what I'm doing today in this life was ever possible. I thought there was nothing in this world for me, and I'm grateful to be alive. And if it wasn't for my higher power and the 12-step program, I definitely wouldn't be here. And to celebrate, just basically, it says right here, I will do something to celebrate today. I will do something today to celebrate, and every day is a celebration, just being able to be alive and wake up in the morning and not be sick, and just spending time with your family, being able to shower and eat and having a roof over your head. Just all those little things is something to celebrate, because, you know, I didn't have that in my active addiction, and it's just so beautiful having it today.
Absolutely. It's always amazing when you just kind of take that time to just slow down throughout your day, and you just kind of notice a lot of those simple things. I mean, honestly, there are always a lot of things that I take for granted, but you know, once in a while you're just like, you know what, I'm really glad that this person's in my life. Or even just, even a hot shower is sometimes my favorite thing in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's always just that mindset of just being aware of all the things that you appreciate.
Right. I agree.
I think it's actually kind of cool that there are things in my life they're amazing. They're like miracles in my life, mm-hmm. compared to where I came from, that I can take for granted now.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a period of time where my entire life fit into a spoon. It was a very lonely existence. There wasn't anything going on. And then I got sober, I started going through the whole process, and my life got bigger and better, and like other things started happening, like my life started opening up. And so now there's things that I take for granted that I don't always appreciate. If I stop and think about them, they're pretty miraculous parts of my life. The fact that I like go to sleep every night, the fact that I have a place to take a hot shower every day,
Right.
things like that I don't pay attention to that often, and even things that sometimes I get frustrated with, like, I got to go to work today, but I have a job to go to, and I enjoy going there.
Right.
The people I work with are really fun to be around. It's so, like, yeah, I can appreciate the huge things, like, oh, my family is back, and I think about that all the time. But there's all these little things that, like you said, I have to stop and think about. And I think it's cool that there are so many good things in my life that I have to stop to be able to think about all of them.
Right.
And I don't know what I do. Like, from day to day, I celebrate different things that I'm grateful for in my life. And I can't, the main celebration is just being able to laugh.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said, though, about appreciating different things throughout the day, because honestly, if you kept to this strict regimen of just appreciating the same things over and over, that almost kind of takes a little bit, away from it. Because, each day when you wake up and you find something new or something that maybe you haven't thought of in a while, it brings that certain kind of, the refreshment, really. It's just kind of like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to take things for granted too now. Now that we're sitting here talking about it, and I don't remember the last time when I'd be like, damn, I'm so grateful to be able to like get in the shower right now. It's been a long day,
Yeah.
But like maybe today that's what I'm gonna do to celebrate. Be grateful for a shower, like be grateful for the ability to eat and wake up and just know that there's no worries.
And there are times where I'm spontaneously grateful for those little things, like get home from like a long weekend away from the house or something.
Yeah.
And I am so like, me and my bed, we're old friends. Like, I'm just so happy to see my bed,
Yeah.
When I read this, I think, I think about the perspective that I had when I was in that place where I would say something like, I'd be better off dead. And you'd probably be better off if I was dead too.
Right.
That's that was like a huge part of it, like, because I see what I do. The only enjoyment that I get from life at that point is getting high. And I can't like go to a movie and see a movie and enjoy it without being high. And there's just absolutely nothing that I can do that's considered normal to like that I would enjoy besides getting high. That's just how my life works. That's my perspective on everything. And
Right.
after getting sober and working steps and cleaning up my behavior and learning to appreciate my life and small things that I have, I just see such a difference in the way that I see things. Like my perspective on, and that's when I get extremely grateful too, right? Is when you're talking about getting in bed like you're old friends with it or whatever, but that sounds kind of weird now. But I mean, like I'll get in my car after work, right? And I'll be driving home or wherever, and it's just like, I went years without having this, and it's when I think about the difference from when I was getting loaded and how I feel about my life now and all the things that I have now, it's just such a drastic change that I can't help but be grateful for that.
Right.
And I guess, I mean, that's more being grateful than celebrating, but as far as celebrating, I think that I get to plan on doing things. Right? I can plan those trips, I can get excited about doing things. Whenever I have built up such a large life, like you said, in recovery, and I have so many really good and close friends that, I mean, I don't see them all the time. So when I get the chance to, like, that's an exciting thing,
Right.
celebrating with people who are getting another year of sobriety or having like a belly button birthday or whatever.
And it's people that actually want to see you too.
Right.
Now that you're sober.
Right. I get invited. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to show up.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, I mean, that's how life goes for me now, and it's such a difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. And you have a nice car, too.
Thanks.
Shall we move on to the next reading?
Yeah.
Sure.
So our second reading is from Daily Reflections. Starts off with page 86 from Alcoholics Anonymous, saying that we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. I invest my time in what I truly love. Step 11 is a discipline that allows me and my higher power to be together, reminding me that with God's help, intuition and inspiration are possible. Practice of the step brings on self-love. In a consistent attempt to improve my conscious contact with a higher power, I am subtly reminded of my unhealthy past, with its patterns of grandiose thinking and false feelings of omnipotence. When I ask for the power to carry out God's will for me, I am made aware of my powerlessness. Humility and a healthy self-love are compatible, a direct result of working step 11. Any thoughts?
Want to talk about humility? Our favorite topic.
Yeah. Humility is hard to talk about because it wasn't fun to go through the whole process of being humbled.
Right.
You know, that whole process of finding out that I'm not as awesome as I thought I was, that I'm not as good at everything.
The world
literally
doesn't revolve around you.
You know, but at the same time, having come out the other side of that, it's become a lot easier. You know, this whole process of like continued prayer and meditation, trying to increase that connection with a higher power, has, like, big picture, there have been some benefits from doing that on a regular basis. But like I think we've talked about before, moment to moment, it works out kind of like practice for moment to moment situations where things come up, and in the past I would have panicked, you
Right.
know? Like, I screwed up, I made a mistake, something weird happened, something bad happened, somebody's angry, somebody's upset, somebody's acting crazy, whatever it is, I don't know what to do. And now, while I might not know specifically, like, oh, this is how you handle this situation, I'm calm enough to be able to think, what can I do that would be most helpful in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that sense of intuition didn't happen all at once. It's happened over a period of years with like continued practice and continuing to do this, and I've gotten better now than I was when I first got sober, but I feel like I have a lot of room to grow and
Yeah.
improve.
We always have room to grow and improve, and
Yeah.
it's just cool that you see that, because sometimes my ego gets the best of me, and you know, I think I'm better than everyone, and there's no room to grow and there's no room to improve. But with time, and that was me in my early recovery, but I let go and allowed humility to come in my life, and just knew that there's always room to grow and there's always something new to learn. And I don't know about you guys, but every morning I read page 86, and we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or decision, and we relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. I remember every morning I'm so tired, and reading that, it just brings like so much. It starts my day off right, and if I don't read it in the morning, and if I don't pray in the morning, then my day is off. And I know I can tell in my driving, we've talked about this before, like I'll drive like a total asshole if I don't pray, and you could just, a lot comes out, like a lot of anger comes out, and I don't know, I do invest my time in what I truly love now, and if it, you know, just sitting through prayer and meditation with my conscious contact with God as I understood Him, that's what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. So when this like giant humbling experience in my life called hitting a bottom, right, and then getting sober and having to live in a halfway house and doing treatment and all that, I mean, part of that humility comes from like reaching that point of desperation where I understand that I don't have all the answers for my life.
Right.
And I don't have control over all the things in my life, and I don't have control over you and this, and I have to stay that way, right? Because that happened to me initially, and it got me to a certain place in sobriety. If I don't keep doing that, I'll slide backwards. If I don't remember to stay humble and stay open, right? Because that's what it really does. It opens me up to have connections with other human beings. Because if I think I have all the answers, I'm just going to shut off everybody.
Right.
So I have to be open, remember to be humble, and I mean, I have to pray to be humble.
Right.
You know, sometimes. And I get reminded too, because when I'm not, a lot of times I'll end up looking like an idiot. That, you know, that
happens.
Definitely happens, and that's another good reminder, another little hit to the ego. It's like, hey, you don't know everything, you don't have all the answers. Remember where to go for those.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Now, one thing that I found really interesting here is even though it does talk a lot about humility, but it also does make a pretty big point talking about self-love too. Because I feel like if someone's all humility, I mean, that could to a certain extent actually reflect as like not being kind to yourself. And I feel like that's also a really important part too. So maybe how do you guys feel about like self-love being such a huge part in recovery?
Well, a lot of people, and I was one of them, when they first kind of come into recovery or they're first introduced to any of these principles, get it in their head that being humble or humility means thinking less of yourself.
Right.
And generally when I first got here, like, that was kind of true. Like, I needed to tone it down a bit. I kind of walked in with a I'm so humble, you should all bask in the glory of my humility mindset, you know? And but the truth is, the real definition of humility is just an honest recognition of one's abilities and limitations. So there are things that I'm good at, and I'm not being arrogant when I say that I'm good at them. I'm objectively, I do well. There are things that I am not good at, and I'm not beating myself up by saying, like, yeah, I am not a good bowler, you know? Like, that's true, I suck. And I'm not just talking myself down. I have to find that middle ground between recognizing what I'm good at and being open to receiving help with the things I'm not good at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Be open-minded.
give yourself some credit. You can't just get walked on.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
but that's definitely a difficult, like, gray area. Like, where am I not being humble and where am I just, like, discrediting myself?
Absolutely. I think that's a lot where the relationship with your higher power, where that really comes in, because a lot of times, you know, you do pray for that kind of discernment to kind of realize it's like, I'm acting in the right here.
Yeah, definitely. Clarity.
I mean, it even says here, I mean, like, inspiration or an intuitive thought, which I thought was really interesting, that would, you know, that a lot of your reasoning would actually come from your own higher power. Which is, I thought that was really interesting. So, I really like how both of these readings, they both kind of tie together, because when you have that humility and you have that self-love, that makes it really easy to celebrate in that sense. Because honestly, do you think it would be really hard to, like, celebrate the little things in your life if you didn't love things about yourself, or you didn't, you know, like who you were? Or are, sorry.
Who you were.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
I don't like who
Exactly.
I don't really like who I was, but I feel okay about who I am, you know. Like I just said earlier, there's room for me to grow in certain areas of my life. But I get what you're saying, you know. And I think I've heard this before, and I don't know if I've said it here before, but life is good whether I perceive it to be or not. And if I'm not humble, if I don't recognize what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, I'm not going to appreciate the things that I'm good at because I don't think I'm good at them, or because I think I'm good at everything. You know, I'm not going to celebrate those places that I've grown, the leaps and bounds my life has gotten better by, because I don't recognize that any of that is happening, because I have a very narrow, one-sided view of how my life is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to stay humble so that I can see all aspects of my life, so that I can celebrate the good ones and work on the not great ones, you
Right.
know?
No, absolutely. Is there anything that you specifically do to kind of keep that in mind? Say you're having a bad day. I mean,
Sponsors.
Yeah.
Having a sponsor is good for.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I'm lucky. I have a sponsor who knows he's my friend, and I have a lot of friends too. And they won't talk down to me. You know, if I come to them with a problem or that I'm upset about something, they won't try and tell me how bad their lives are. They'll do this even more messed up thing where they start trying to point out how good my life is.
Mm-hmm. When you want to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
wallow in self-pity,
Yeah.
they're just like,
Don't
look
you
at
hate
you're
that?
sober,
It's
you're doing
bad.
good.
And so, like, to avoid that conversation, I just sort of start looking for those things on my own,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Mhm.
It's
It's just like I already have the list.
And also I, you know, true or not, I just tell myself, like, when things aren't going my way, they're not going my way for a reason.
Right.
You know, something as simple as, like, I got out of the house late, so I'm going to be late to work. And I've heard stories, and, like, I have no reason to believe this isn't the case for me, that people were late to work and found out that there was some gnarly accident on the
Mhm.
freeway. That's the way they go to work, which if they had left on time, they would have been right in the middle of all that,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know? And that's a pretty, like, simple and small example, but there's a reason for the things that happen in my life, whether I recognize it or not. So
Mhm.
even bad days, like, I don't enjoy it, but I know there's going to be a reason behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, even when things don't seem like it's going your way at the time, I mean, I personally have had several moments where, you know, things haven't gone the way I expected them or the way that I really wanted it to. But honestly, if things hadn't happened the way it is, I mean, I might not even be here today, you know,
Mhm.
and, you know, I wouldn't trade anything knowing what I know now.
Right.
Like, a perfect example is all the times I went to jail while I was still using,
Ugh.
you know? There's a good chance, like, that's the only reason I'm still alive is that I went
It's
to
because
jail.
you went to jail, right?
You know?
And I know, you know, an example of this, when I was in jail, I kept calling my family to bail me out, but they don't enable me, and they're like, you need to stay in there, and it's going to do you good. And I didn't understand that at the time, but I am almost positive with the rate that I was going at out there, being sick for a few days, then doing as much dope as I could possibly do, overdosing multiple times, that, you know, the ambulance wouldn't find me this time. Something would have happened, and yeah, I hated it at the time, but I'm glad I'm here now.
We're glad too.
The
Thank you.
miracle of jail.
I know. Oh gosh.
That sounds weird.
Yeah.
The miracle of jail.
Miracle of jail. That's a
I like
good band
picture
name.
someone walking out with like a halo around them. It's the miracle of jail. That was so
Yeah.
stupid.
But-
Just gonna sit here.
It's interesting though when you look at it in that perspective, because honestly, a lot of us, I mean, I'm probably one of the most guilty. I look at something just in the moment
Mm-hmm.
and don't really see, you know, what led up to the moment or what's going to be past it. But honestly, when you kind of look with that broader, you know, the spectrum of time, and you do see that a lot of that, you know, everything happens for a reason, that I don't know, it just kind of frees you from a lot of like guilt of whatever you've done in the past, because it's shaped who you are today and where you are.
Right.
Another thing that I would want to get you guys' opinion on is maybe a piece of advice for someone who might be just first starting in recovery, or someone who's still in active addiction and wanting to get help is, where do you start when you're in this place where you don't feel any joy from anything, you know, outside of using? Because I know right after someone just gets through detox, you know, there's the anhedonia going on where there's, you know, you can't feel a lot of joy because the dopamine is depleted. So I mean, there's probably a point in time where someone might be going along trying to work the steps and just saying it's just not working. I mean, would be any advice that you'd give?
Anything?
I mean, I don't know about the chemicals in your brain. I mean, I'm sure it takes time to rebalance those out. But when I was having a really rough time, I had a sponsor at this time, and I told him, I was like, I was thinking about a time in my life that was really good, right? And I just kept thinking about it constantly, like my life will never ever be that good again. And he looked at me, he's like, I promise you that you will be in that place again. And I didn't really believe him, but I tried to have faith either way, you know what I mean? And even, I mean, the reason I believe this person is because he's led me through getting sober once or twice already. And I can't really defend like myself versus him on what, like whatever I have to argue about. But I just take the actions either way.
Right.
I work the steps and take the actions because they've worked for the worst parts of my life, and they've, like, my life has gotten incredibly, a lot better, basically. And I just took it on his word that my life would get to that point again. And that's kind of what you have to do. Take the actions either way. Even if you don't believe it, just do it.
Yeah.
Because you'll get back to that place.
Well, and it's kind of the same thing. I remember people telling me when I was like withdrawing, when I was dope sick, like it feels like this is gonna last forever. And I'm here to tell you, like, I still don't feel dope sick.
Right.
And even after that, I went through what you were talking about, just like completely unhappy. It was really hard to feel like any kind of happiness or joy, and it was uncomfortable. I'm not trying to downplay that. It sucks, but it's also over. I don't know exactly when it ended, but I know it ended long enough ago for me to forget. You know?
Yeah.
So it's going through with the whole process, going through the steps, talking to your sponsor, going to meetings. I get that stuff really is not that fun right off the bat, but it's also not doing any harm. And the more you do that, the more likely you are to continue to stay sober long enough for that joy to come back.
Right.
You know?
No, absolutely.
They say in the room, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And I know my dad, he's in recovery, and he always just tells me if I'm in a hard spot to keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep doing the next right thing, and sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly. And, you know, everything's going to happen for a reason, what we were talking about. And it can get rough at times, but it's going to be worth it. Like, I remember in my hardest times, there was a point where I almost relapsed, and I fought through it, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And it sucks sometimes, but there's so much good that comes out of going through that little rough spot in your life.
Like a leap of faith kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just having hope in what will be, you know, and I think it was really important that you had someone there with you, like Connor, your sponsor, that was able to tell you this, like, I promise you this will be, you know, it will be better. You know, it's I feel like it's really important to, like, have that kind of support, whether it's a sponsor or even like your own family members, like your dad, just saying that, you know, this isn't where it stops.
Right.
You know, there's just so much more that goes beyond it. Excellent. Any other thoughts?
Do we have any questions?
Let's see.
I'm all out of thoughts for the day.
Yeah.
I used them all up.
Yeah, actually, I can't see anything from where I'm at, but I think that will probably do it for today.
Cool.
Around 30 minutes. But anyway, join us next week, and we'll be going over more live stream reflections. Thank you.